It's Jack's Facts. It's time for Facts with Jack. That's me! Hi, my name is Merle K. Jackson, but you can call me Jack for short. Welcome, foolish mortals, to my little corner of the internet that I like to call Kitchen Sink Chronicles. Today's episode of Jack's Facts is all about Alice's adventures in Wonderland. This may or may not have been inspired by the fact that I myself am having a face mask, socially distanced tea party for my birthday, in which I will have very few people over. But it's still going to be fun because it's going to be all tea and vintage inspired. Cottagecore adjacent, not exactly the same thing. It's not really a cottage, it's more of a garden party for the Victorian elite. That's kind of how I see myself, I guess. Without further ado, the facts about Alice's adventures in Wonderland. The book is widely credited with changing the landscape of children's literature. Before this, all the children's literature that did exist was super obsessed with morals. This was just nonsense and fun. In fact, it was likely the birth of nonsense writing in the first place. So it really does have its place in history. Lewis Carroll's real name was Charles Lutwig Dodgson. Oh, thank you. I'm not going to end every single one with drinking tea from my imaginary empty cup. I promise you that. But for now I will. Do you like the clouds I've painted on my curtain? Or the spring-like floral stickers I have put on my window? I like them a lot. Anyway, Alice in the story was actually based off of a real girl. She was based off of the daughter of Henry Liddell, who was the dean of Christ Church College at Oxford, where Carroll taught mathematics. Never expected him to be a math guy. Everything in that book is so irrational, but this will make sense later. The reason why it was based off of the dean's daughter is because everyone who was employed by the school also lived on campus, so they all became pretty close to each other and basically became like family. The writing process of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland actually started with Lewis Carroll telling fantastical stories out loud to Alice Liddell and her two sisters. This began on a boating trip that the families took together in 1862. Apparently, the children loved these stories so much that they insisted on hearing them again and again, and even getting more that were in the same vein. Eventually, he wrote them down and actually gave them as a Christmas present to Alice in 1864 that contained all of the stories that he had come up with so far in one big collection. But he didn't stop telling the stories there, he still came up with more of them as the children demanded more. And by the time it came to actually publishing the book in 1865, that original manuscript had doubled in length from the Christmas present that he had given Alice. And at that point, some new characters had been added. Some familiar characters had been added. Two of which were the Mad Hatter and the Cheshire Cat, who might have never even appeared in the story if it wasn't for these three little girls loving these stories so much and insisting that Carroll come up with new ones. The very first film adaptation of Alice in Wonderland was actually a 12-minute British film made in 1903 and was, at the time, the longest film ever made in the history of England. Both of Lewis Carroll's Alice books, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and its sequel, Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, were actually banned in China in 1931. Why? Well, it's apparently because it was considered unsuitable on the grounds that animals shouldn't use human language. Yeah, I'm confused too. Here's a bird cage. The title of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland went through many iterations before it became what we know today. Why were you under a teacup? The different titles for it stretch all the way back to that original boating trip where Carroll came up with the idea for the story. It was originally called Alice's Adventures Underground, which is the name of the book that was given to Alice as that Christmas present, and it went through a myriad of other names, including Alice's Hour in Elfland, Alice Among the Fairies, and finally, the one we all know and love today, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, or frequently shortened to Alice in Wonderland. You might remember that I said Carol was a mathematician. Well, he was, and quite an old-fashioned one at that. Which means that in the late 19th century, when Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was written, math was starting to become more and more abstract, with confusing things like imaginary numbers being added into it. Carol sought to satirize and poke fun at that with all of the nonsense going on in Alice in Wonderland. I mean, just think about the Mad Hatter and his unsolvable riddles, like how a raven is like a writing desk. I'm sure many children who were trying to learn math at the time and even still today relate to that message a lot, which is just one of the reasons why I think this story continues to be popular. It really exemplifies Carol's great skill in adopting the point of view and perspective of a child. That's why children connect with the story, because it really feels like it is written for children. It gets them, and it understands their struggles. You know, this teacup's been great, but I really think it's time to get a new tea set. What do you think? Let's go! Where is that? Oh, there it is! Oh, would you look at how cute all this is? Ah, that's better. Well, now that we have our new tea set, I'll be brief. What do you mean this is basically the same angle as the other one, just more zoomed in? We never reuse angles here at Jack's Facts, obviously. Anyway, the names of the three little sisters in the Dormouse story are actually based off of the three Liddell sisters that Carol originally told the stories to and created the stories for. The name Elsie came from the initials of Lorena Charlotte, or LC. Lacey was supposed to be a nickname for Alice, and Tilly was short for Matilda, which was the name that Edith was given by her sisters. After hearing about its popularity and reading it, Queen Victoria loved Alice's Adventures in Wonderland so much that she insisted that Lewis Carroll's next book be dedicated to her, and his next book was dedicated to her. The only thing is that his next book was called, and hold on, let me read this to make sure I get it right, An Elementary Treatise on Determinants with their application to simultaneous linear equations and algebraic equations. Yeah, you gotta remember he was a math guy. I'm sure this is not what she was expecting, but nonetheless, this math book was presented to the Queen as an official gift. I'm sure she didn't read this one. Much of the nonsense in Wonderland was actually based off of real people and real places and experiences that the three girls had, which might be why they connected to the stories so much. It both made fun of and understood and explained the experiences that they had. For example, in the story, the Mock Turtle mentions that he has a very peculiar art teacher that comes to see him once a week. The Liddell girls actually did have an art tutor who would come once a week to give them lessons. Additionally, the Cheshire Cat's tree was actually based off of a real tree in the Christchurch College gardens, where Carol, the girls, their father, and all of the employees and families at the college lived together, that they would explore in their youth. I can really see why they loved these stories so much. Oh, also, I know that we have like a bird cage and roses and a thing with branches and a mouse and a weird looking bird to add to the sort of Alice in Wonderland type aesthetic. I think that I'm storing something up here that can help us a little bit with that. Ooh, that's better. I actually dressed up as the Mad Hatter for Halloween when I was but a youngin', I think 14. This was the hat I bought for that. I've liked this aesthetic for that long. As for the next fact, Lewis Carroll had a debilitating stutter. Because of this, and because his real name was Charles Dodgson, he would often introduce himself as Dodgson, which kind of sounded like Dodo. This is what prompted him to base the Dodo character in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland off of himself. In fact, that entire story with the birds is supposed to be a retelling of the very same boating trip where he came up with the idea for Wonderland and all the wonderful stories that take place in it in the first place. It was actually because of this debilitating stutter that he turned to math and writing anyway, because it prevented him from becoming a priest like he originally wanted. However, it did not prevent him from something else. It did not prevent him from being able to tell stories that would inspire and instill wonder in children for generations and generations to come. The book has never been out of print, and for good reason. It's magical, it's fantastical, it's nonsensical and fun, and it understands children. Kids can relate to it. It doesn't talk down to them, it tries to understand them and relate to them. And that is why I think that Alice's Adventures in Wonderland continues to be so well loved. And for the last time, I will drink my invisible tea from this teacup. And those are all of the facts that I have for you today about Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Also, I just kind of really wanted to acknowledge my makeup because I feel like I did a good job with it, somewhat. I don't know, tell me if I did. Yeah, anyway, so... Hattie? Where's the Hatbox Ghost? Uh-oh. Oh no. I think I know what's happening. Well, that was mysterious. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video and you would like to give it a thumbs up, please do so. It really helps the channel. And if you would like to subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to watch the rest of the Jack's Facts episodes that have been before this, those will be linked on screen as well as some of my other videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, I guess. Goodbye!